Instead of giving the first lecture today and the second one Thursday, I'm going to give both of them today and both of them again on Thursday. They are, the title is Overpopulation and Art, and they are Mesostics on those 20 letters. 20 for the first lecture and 20 for the second. They are not taken from source material, but are simply written following the Mesostic rule that the V of overpopulation shall not appear between the O and the V until the second line, etc. About 1948 or 50, the number of people living all at once equaled the number who had ever lived at any time, all added together. The present, as far as numbers go, became equal to the past. We are now in the future. It is something else. Has it doubled? Has it quadrupled? All we now know for sure is the dead are in the minority. They are outnumbered by us who are living. What does this do to our way of communicating? Mails, rarely from people we know. I spend time saving it to send it to Wesleyan, Northwestern, or Santa Cruz. For fungi and arts, pictures thus given of this moment in history, ephemera give it. Rest of the mail's bureaucratic fundraising by institutions concerned with health and environment, human rights, etc. 3 copies of the same document, contribution re-requests, bureaucratic inefficiency glaringly exhibited, all thrown away, triplicate stamped envelopes included. Phone rings, reviving practice of Buddhism, practice, whether sentient or non-sentient, practice of Buddhism, the general outlines of every being, including the telephone, is the Buddha, is world honored, is answered, is thee, is of, is emptiness, fullness, all of creation, endless interpenetration, together with non-obstruction. Of what avail, then, the use of answering service? Attempt to free oneself from interruption? Solitude for just a moment regained is utterly, finally lost, finding 19th, not 21st, in 20th century. Are you into fax and electronic mail? Are you in touch? HCE? We live in glass houses, our vitric surroundings, transparent, reflective, putting images outside in space of what's inside our homes. Everything's as multiplied as we are. Each moment is magic. We have no idea what's being seen or heard. The quantity is beyond count. The quality is ready-made art. This demonstrates validity of those works of art in which no place is more important than another. Beauty at all points. If it doesn't click, Wittgenstein, take a clicker from your pocket and click it. Transform your perception of it. of whatever, no matter what the name, what the artist's name, no need for balance, harmony, contrast, climax. In this situation, what's the artist's proper behavior? Self-expression? Or should he put himself aside, so to speak, change himself, asking questions instead of following laws, or making an attempt after breaking them to establish yet another or others? Getting rid of the principles of law, of control, increasing world and life enjoyment seems more radical. Removal of the likes and dislikes, chance operations, wanting to get a taxi, avoiding a gentleman on the corner who was there ahead of me, I separated my problem from his by going to the opposite side of the street. Just as I hailed an empty cab, I was surprised. The gentleman rushed ahead of me and actually got in the cab without even a remark. I don't know whether he happened to see, but another cab picked me up before he was out of sight. What are some of the various eventualities in a changed society? No government, keeping education in first place, keeping it, that is, for you to give to yourself, increase of unemployment until we are all self-employed, self-taught, self-governed, a way not just to say anarchy, but to do it. Forget the politicians. They are on the moon. When they saw we were no longer voting, they left. Not bothering with money, preferring credit. Credit's electronic. No person need be without it. But who'll do all the work? Those who do will have pleasure seeing their work actually carried out. Robots making robots. We have the next war mapped out for us to make the world safe for poverty. Violation of laws made to protect the rich. While there's still government, pass laws based on the needs of the poor. Give them shelter, squatting privileges. Change the economic structure of society out of profit and ownership into use. The police walled up the doors and windows. The house is again not used, and the people are still homeless. Mayor said, evict the squat. The police did it brutally. A house was empty. We restored it, filled space with life, concerts, discussions, people's kitchen, libraries. Nobody gets money for her or his work. A non-profit basis, changes of behavior, discussions about sex, overcoming repressive structures, having no need for art, pleased with what I see, pleased with what I hear, surrounded by multiplicity. He said he could imagine a world without art and that it wasn't bad. Artlessness, the sound of traffic, an instance of silence, the sound of traffic, the sound of traffic, an instance of silence. Phone rings, reviving practice of Christianity. Split the stick, split the stick, and there is Jesus, walking, on the writing, on the water as though nothing happened. The snow The white animal asleep, safely asleep in the tree, no traces left. Oh, reviving practice, whether meditation or non-meditation, pleased or displeased, won't burn, the metal ones won't burn, is a, is the, is of, is emptiness, fullness, practicality, all creation, endless interpenetration, whispered truths, the necessity to find new forms of living together, to stop the estrangement between us, to overcome the patriarchal thinking, the authoritarian structures, and the coldness, human not-togetherness. The necessity to develop a culture that consciously opposes the ruling culture, a culture which we create, we determine, which overcomes the passive consumer's attitudes, and which is not ruled by profiteering. Aesthetic spirit is as though visibility would not help, as though everything that is generally understood must stop. Only what one person alone understands helps all of us. How? What is not understood, a mystery, is now necessary, something we don't, of which we can't make head or tail, a music of variations without repetitions, an introduction to pleasure that has no need for proof or ideas or feelings, goal without goal. And what did I hear or see? I can't be sure. It was as if there was nothing on which to depend, as if there was nothing but in the presence of. Nikša Gligo wrote from Zagreb to say, the ugly Yugoslavian war is not between people. It has been brought about by that part of government and army that's concerned with Serbian power. Let our friends and all others know the truth. This is not ethnic nor civil war, nor different ways of thinking. This is an imperialist political aggression. It's all happening in the heart of Europe at the end of the 20th century, possibly bringing about the total disappearance of Croatian state and people. What did you hear? The Pentagon giving up on the radio, soldiers not to be paid, just discharged, 700,000, a great boon for unemployment. Do you think we'll finally see unemployment's what we've been working toward? Unemployment's self-employment. At last, we may be doing what we, the human race, could be doing, all of us. As he said, Suzuki said, there seems to be a tendency toward the good. Even though the future is already here, many are still living in the past. All governments are striking examples of what's out of date and inappropriate to our proper business, our evolution. Though there are more of us, all of us live in the same place, the planet Earth. There is no difference between what happens to some of us and what happens to the others. Whatever happens, happens to all of us. Our problems are not various, they are identical. The purifying of water and air, the provision of nourishing food, the delivery of it to places where it is needed or just desired, the providing of shelter, the availability of energy, whether it is needed, wherever it is needed. We have these problems in common. We can solve them all best without thinking of the division of the world into 153 separate nations. Their separate powers mortally destructive. R. Buckminster Fuller called it killingly as opposed to livingly. Fuller is dead, but his spirit is now more than ever the spirit the world needs. It is alive. We have it in his work, his writings. Let us not forget we are now having to continue his work. In music, the absence of conductor, score, and bar line. Spaceship Earth, human needs and world resources, the two kept in balance, finding changing solutions for changing problems. The world game teenagers, Fuller showed, can play it. In other words, intelligence is needed instead of politics or lawyers or even the United Nations. So, what's future's future? First, the world's prime vital problem is how to multiply by 3 swiftly, safely, and satisfyingly per pound, kilowatt, and man-hour the overall performance realizations of the world's comprehensive resources. This will render those resources able to support 100% of humanity's increasing populace at levels of physical living far above whatever has been known or imagined. To satisfy the physical will bring us also undreamed of metaphysical capabilities. Next, instead of ownership, individual 24-hour use of facilities, cars, cycles, paintings, hotels, telephones, museums, hospitals, libraries, restaurants, multiplying of value by time, if house is locked, honoring its use, later when house is free, opening a door with one of those flat computer-made keys, its time validity changed. And then, stopping the removal of fossil fuels from the earth, developing solar energy, developing pneumatic power, effects of light, air, etc., reserving oil and gas for a time when their use is needed in connection with the initiation of a future technique. Third, along with the removal of nations, the removal of schools, Ivan Illich's deschooling society, putting the process of learning in the hands of the person who is doing it, computer facilities and ways to contact others, old or young, who share your interests, studios for every kind of art or research. In a word, utopia. We have only to make it work for every last one of us. We begin by believing it can be done, getting rid of pessimism, blindly clinging to optimism, in no sense doubting the possibility of utopia, but simply wanting to know the details of how it will happen. How does it begin and where? It will not happen politically. Fuller says it will arise due to mankind's vast wealth, industrial wealth, the tool-organized capability to take energies of the universe, which are transforming their patternings in various ways, as yet uncontrolled by man, so that they go through channels onto the ends of circularly arranged levers, which man invents, so that the energy turns wheels and shafts to do all the work. Universal energy is inexhaustible. Our knowledge only increases, as does our common wealth. In order to bring about continuous elevation of human dignity, we will be able to afford to give everyone student fellowships in any subjects they elect, Fuller's education automation. Everyone's going to study whatever he pleases. Man's not needed because of his ability to work as a slave. He's needed because of his ability to consume. The Chinese now have the most consumers. They'll eventually produce at the lowest prices. With that competition, we're going to be forced to go into total automation, full unemployment, only to find ourselves amazingly successful. Wealth automated. Industries now whirled around. Picture of man that's now visibly developing is world man. World citizenship will not occur as a political initiative. It will be required by the economics of an exploding industrial world, required for its personnel. If everybody who teaches school because it's the simplest way of making a living were given a well-funded fellowship to a lifelong research, would they accept? Would they not stop asking, how can I make a living, and start asking, what is it that I love, that I'm interested in? What could I do to help make the world work to some more satisfactory, more interesting point? This used to be a stupid question. It suddenly becomes a very logical one. In 1927, Fuller gave up forever the general dictum of society, that is, that everyone to survive must make a living. He substituted the individual's anti-entropic responsibility in universe. Fuller sought as an individual for the tasks needed to be done no one else was doing or attempting to do, which, if done, would physically and economically help society to eliminate pain. As a consequence, it was necessary for him to discipline his imaginings, invent and develop technical and scientific capabilities, innovative problem solutions, synergetics. He found design strategy for universe, humanity, children, advantaging the new life, the new intelligence, doing more with less, ephemeralization. Fuller's revolution is his plan to change not man, but man's environment. Basque friend Esther Ferrer replied by fax. I knew her as artist, anarchist. I had asked about anarchy's future. Anarchy will always have a future and a present, she wrote, because it's associated with creativity. I don't mean art, which is something else. I talk of creativity in the sense that it comes from rejoicing, from pleasure, serving first of all the person who practices it, unconditioned by obligations to anyone else. There is no master except oneself. Anarchy, like creativity, is thus a completely gratuitous choice which engages only yourself and which you decide to practice. One could well define anarchy as a practice of liberty. One can practice it without others being at all interested. It does not take away from one's own joy, that is. Anarchistic thought is something out of time, even without time. I would even dare to say something anchored in human nature. There are other things anchored in human nature, unfortunately, and like creativity, individualistic and individualized. This is the source of its attractiveness and enormous risk. It is particularly attractive in periods as today of loss of spirit, loss of hope. There isn't or doesn't seem to be messianic hope to stuff our heads with. There is a return to essential things, never far away, because we can find them inside ourselves, without needing recourse to ideologists or master thinkers, without needing to think outside ourselves, our liberties limited only by the consideration we give others as beings who also practice liberty. Anarchy is quite simply a problem of assuming individual responsibility. It is the idea that each person conceive of himself as an intelligent being capable of making his life decisions without delegating his decision-making capacities to someone else, whether a god, king, state, party, ingenious artist, master of thought, mother or father. Esther says, after all, anarchy really does have the future people are talking about. It is creative conduct as opposed to subordinate conduct. It is positive individualism, to follow a way of thinking that proposes you can assume for your own acts responsibility, visibly responsible, first to yourself and then to society. After the unworkability of capitalism, Marxism, authoritarian socialism, anarchy seems for man's liberation to be a possibility once again. As Jorge Oriza said to me, from failure to failure, right up to the final victory. I think now of Marshall McLuhan. The world has become a single mind. We have extended the central nervous system. Electronics, our technology, makes the revolution for us. We can change our minds. We share only one. The planet has become a single person. It is a question of rolling off a log. Conduct, creative, conduct from failure to failure. Anarchy, it promises nothing. Mind, up to the final victory. Creative mind. A couple of questions. I don't know whether I could answer them, but I could respond to them if you have them. Pardon? Repeat what? The question is...
You're asking us questions.
Okay, that's the one I asked, or someone asked me. I don't have any prepared answers.
Anyone care to give an answer to a question that John Cage? Let's hear from someone. You can also ask a question. Yes.
I just like to know if you have a mental image of what a world without art would be.
Of what?
A world without art. What would it be like?
It's a remark of Jasper Johns, and we were in a car slowly leaving the Museum of Modern Art. And he looked at it quite seriously and said, I can imagine a world without art. And he said, it wouldn't be bad. I myself enjoy very much what I mentioned in this talk, the sounds of traffic. And I live on 6th Avenue in New York, so that my enjoyment of sound is fully satisfied without my writing music. At the same time, I have more commissions to do that than I think I've ever had. And I have more access to performances, so that I continue working.
Yes, please.
If you say that we're now in the future and we should leave the past away, what do you think about this attitude, bringing up the past
I don't quite understand.
In relation to 92, questions
Yeah.
like the past and
Yeah.
making that past part of our new future, how do you feel the charge of it or analyzing it or taking it?
I think in all the various ways that people will think of. I would not be the only person doing it. All of us will be doing it. And the past won't be forgotten.
Yes, please.
What about anger? What is the role of anger in the world?
It's one of the black permanent emotions, according to Indian thought, aesthetic thought. And its movement should be toward tranquility. It can be combined with the other emotions, black or white, but the movement should be toward tranquility, which is without color.
In relation to your discussion of anarchy, how is it possible for the human being to react to being crushed down by oppression without organizing with other people? I mean, isn't it a natural tendency when one is crushed down to try to organize with others and form community?
I think I won't be able to answer these questions. I have tried to make to bring together my thoughts that are of an optimistic nature. And I have been unhappy in recent times with conversation and what I read and so forth, that is so gloomy and that is so hopeless. So I brought together something that could give us reasons for hope, as much as I could.